Welcome back to the Leading Together podcast, Insights for Delaware's Tomorrow. I'm your host, Julia Kelleher, Executive Director of First Aid Educate. So in each episode, we sit down with Delaware's top minds and leaders. And so grateful for them sharing their perspectives. These are perspectives that help FSE advance our mission, which is to build capacity, raise awareness, and elevate school board leadership across all of our communities. And today, I'm honored to be joined by Councilman Gerald Rocha Sr., who is a dedicated public servant and community leader, currently serving on the Dover City Council, representing District 1. He was first elected in 2020 and then reelected in 2025. And he brings just a really unique and powerful blend of military service, nonprofit leadership, youth development, and civic engagement to his role. So I'm excited that he's here with us today on the show. Originally from New York, he relocated here in 1998 when he was with the Air Force. And he was a program manager at the Dover Air Force Base, Honor Guard. 20 years of service. So, thank you for that. I think that's very important to recognize, but always been focused on his community. And he founded the Delaware Youth Leadership Academy, helping young people develop leadership. So we're thrilled to have you here. So excited for this conversation. I didn't go through all of the things that you do because you also work with the Parents Association and the Governor's Commission on Community, but I hope we get into all of that stuff as part of our conversation. So thank you so much.
Oh, you're very welcome, Julia. I'm very excited to be here. And, service before self. The Air Force taught me that, and I've been living it ever since. And, that's what drew me into public service and, happy to be here and happy to serve.
And I know that that's true about you. I mean, it's, you can look at your resume and see it, but when we did Delaware's first regional spelling bee for First Aid Educate, we reached out and we asked you, would you serve? And you were so gracious with your time as we were figuring it out with that first one. You were there holding us steady. So thank you.
Yeah. Definitely enjoyed the experience and wanted the experience. I felt honored to even be asked to do it. Of course, watching the movie Akeelah and the Bee, I've always been excited. I've always watched the spelling bee on ESPN, and it was an honor to participate.
Is it nerve-wracking? Just to, little insight for the audience. Is it nerve-wracking to be a judge?
It is at first, but then you get your rhythm. Eventually, you get your rhythm, and you figure it out. But in the beginning, it's like a scramble to make sure that you're doing, with all the rules that go along with it. Being able to navigate it in the beginning, and then once you get your rhythm and your grading process down, then it eases up. Just like anything else in life, you get the fire hose effect at first, and then you obviously settle down and you're able to, perform.
So it's interesting that you in your answer, I think it was one of the things that I wanted to talk, have you share with the audience is your background goes across military, civic, education. You've been in a lot of different leadership roles, and you're kind of talking about a little bit kind of how you've been able to be so successful. So, what have those experiences really taught you about structure, responsibility, and figuring out how to be of service to others?
Well, I mean, as far as my military career, day one in the military, it feels like the fire hoses with the water pressure is coming at you. And there's a little bit of fear, and the fear is actually a good thing because it keeps you focused. But then through time, you get to utilize your skills, and as you grow in your military career, almost every brand new aspect. Whenever I encountered something new when I was in the military, I always reflected back on basic training, which was huge in the development of how to handle pressure. The basic training is the introduction to the pressure that you're going to face in the military. And then obviously when you move from the military back into a role in which we call the civilian role, all of those things that you learn, they carry forward with you, and you learn to execute the exact same way, just in a different capacity.
It's really an insightful answer, because I think when we think about our work at First Aid Educate and the training we do for school boards, that is really what we're trying to provide, is some kind of basic training orientation. I mean, and it makes sense, right? You give people, when they're going to be in a challenging role,
Absolutely.
something to draw on.
Right. And you know, and even after basic training, we went from there to technical school, and it happened all over again. It just restarted back up, and we had to study, we had tests, and a lot of people may not realize, you know, the military is an alternative to going to college or going to some form of higher academics, but they don't realize until they sign up and go in how much academics plays a role in the military as well. And for those who think that, you know, they didn't do well in school, but I'll join the military as if they can slide past being educated, they're in for a rude awakening. You have to go smart no matter what. There's a lot of monies for you to go into the military, and there's a lot of spending that's going on to train you to perform, and that takes some level of academic success to get you through. And you know, it takes discipline, it takes you know, definitely a focus. It definitely takes you to be your best at what you do. It challenges you. And you know, and then once you get used to that lifestyle, it carries you know, and it can take you a long way.
So it sounds, you know, just inspirational to hear you say this, and I appreciate it very, very much. And it makes me wonder, is you know, some of this what you share when you do that community work with youth, right? You came back to Dover, you decided to invest in the community, and you're sort of, it's almost saying, like, for a young person to hear that about why the choices they make today are important and how they're going to need those skills.
Yeah, I teach them that. I tell them, I try to be as transparent, you know, as possible, so that, and paint the picture so that when I'm standing in front of youth, I'm giving them the best advice that I think I can give. And hopefully, you know, you know, the light bulb goes off, especially at a younger age. You know, I do spend a lot of time with students from 5th grade to 8th grade right now. I'm teaching leadership at the Academy of Dover, and I give them some of my real life scenarios, you know, and a lot of it is military, but not all of it. You know, I could go back to when I was 16 years old, and my first job was at McDonald's. And I don't know how it is now, but I know back then at McDonald's, you just couldn't stand still. We didn't have cell phones or anything like that, right? I can imagine now there is no standing there scrolling when there's not a customer in the store. You have to, or in the restaurant, you have to keep moving, and you have to stay busy. And if that's wiping down the tables and polishing, you know, the stainless steel, that's what we did. And even when I took that into the military, and I didn't like being in a place where I'm just sitting there idle, I had to keep doing something. And that enabled me to actually excel even more in the military, because I already had some form of discipline even before I joined.
So it's important for you for the youth today to understand that, you know, these are sort of characteristics that will help them to be more successful. And I think it's beneficial, because if I don't know that every child has an adult in their life that is pouring those kinds of things in. So I think it's great that you do that.
Well, we try to do it. Of course, you're in a classroom setting, and it's hard to convince them to understand the level of being dedicated and disciplined, and how you carry yourself affects not only you, affects not only your family, but you're also representing the company one day that you're going to be working for. And of course, the military really is exceptional with training us to represent. You know, we represent not only the Air Force, but the entire Department of Defense in some capacity. So when you're ingrained in that, and you carry that weight on your shoulders, so to speak, then your choices start to change. Then you're not going to necessarily roll the dice on any bad choices, because
Right.
the bad choices that you make are going to be a reflection on more than just you. And
Exactly.
I think that we sort of live in a selfish environment, and I'm trying to teach the young children to be more selfless
Less.
and
Yeah.
actually be courteous enough to think about the others who could be hurt by your
Yeah.
actions if you choose to go in the wrong direction.
Exactly. No, it's an excellent point. Very, very relevant, I think, for today's society, but also for school boards, because in many instances, these elected officials are they. It is an act of service. There is self-sacrifice in there, but there is this big transition to I am no longer just representing me. I am representing the district and the people who elected me. And part of this podcast, right, is intended to sort of raise that awareness that there's a decision making that's for the greater good that you have to
Right.
do.
Right.
Um, do
Well,
you find that in being a councilman that you know all of these experiences have sort of prepared you to make those kinds of really good decisions for Dover?
yes. It's funny that you mentioned that. I try to, when I have conversations with my colleagues on the council, we talk about this,
Hmm.
right? So we represent the people who elect us, right? First and foremost, correct? But
Hmm.
however, we still have in our situation over 400 employees that work for us, essentially. You know what I
Right.
mean? So even though you have to balance uh, different personalities of our constituents,
Uh-huh.
but not only that, recognize that we have employees that are watching us who are our constituents as well in many cases.
Well, right, right.
So
Hmm.
we can't come up with, if a problem is identified, and kind of like play the blame game as if the city is at fault, because we represent the city,
The
which
city,
means we represent the
the
employees as
problem,
well.
right? Exactly. Yeah.
But we don't want our employees lowering their head because we've shamed them in public.
Hmm.
So we
Hmm.
have to be careful. We're modeling our behavior in front of a very broad society, and
Hmm.
school board members do the same thing. You can't
Sure.
blame
Hmm.
teachers if academics is not at par where we want it
Hmm.
to be. Um, you know, we have to think about the strategies versus pointing the fingers at individuals. You know what I mean? So
Yeah.
it does
Yeah.
become something that, thankfully, um, through my military experiences,
Hmm.
I've kind of developed that, and I'm very careful in my conversations with folks, and
Hmm.
even in public, and in a public setting when I'm speaking at a meeting, that
Hmm.
I've learned to direct uh, any problem to the processes
Yeah.
versus the
Not the people.
individuals. Right,
Sure.
right.
Yeah.
And if
Yeah.
I can
No, I
be,
love
I
that.
think if we can come collectively doing that, I think we can solve a lot of these problems.
Sure. Yep. Yeah, I think that's a great point. Directing the problem to the process and not the individual.
Exactly.
And you know you've done a lot to build a strong community in Dover. You know your the decision making, your engagement with the community, and just your leadership role there. And you've also been a voice for youth and education. So, can we talk a little bit, just to flip to sort of our second segment here? I wanted to touch on just sort of the role of a school in creating health and opportunity, and the role of education and kind of strengthening or promoting the well-being of a community.
Right. So, from my city council experience, and we learn every single day, right? This is
Yes.
like another form of education, being a public servant and learning the nuances of running a city, and how economic development plays a key role in bringing more businesses to our city, which helps our
Mm-hmm.
city grow and thrive, right? So that's the goal for the city. But how do we do that, right? How do we attract
Mm-hmm.
businesses? How do we bring, businesses here, the ones that we want to, right? We say we're telling them to come to our city and everything. Well, do we have a workforce that's capable?
Mm-hmm.
of carrying out the type of work that they're going to need? Do we have the school district itself for people that's coming and moving into our city, that those employees of that company that we want to move here are bringing in people, and we have a school system that we can be proud of, that we can offer as an incentive for a family to come, right? And then through workforce development, are we educating our children and grooming our children to be ready to step into different levels of our workforce? And then are we even developing them to internally have a mindset of entrepreneurship for themselves, right? And we know that that's a work in progress in many municipalities, not just our own. But one of the key factors is keeping close communication with the school district, because that's the pipeline to our workforce. And we realize that is so important. And even for our volunteer fire department, having a volunteer spirit of young individuals who are selfless, that would want to fill those roles even on a volunteer case, be part of our fire department. So there's a whole lot in the education realm that the city really has to trust and lean on in order for the successful growth of our city to take place going into for the future.
Yeah, 1,000%. So does the count? I mean, I think these are all great. These are great ideas. I agree with you 100% on all of them. I do think education is important to have a workforce that's to have graduates that are ready to step into the workforce. Equally, that businesses want to come because they know that they're going to have a talent pool, but then that their employees can send their children to a public education, and they not have to think about what a tuition payment would be for private school, because the public schools aren't performing where we would like them to.
Absolutely.
How is there a relationship between how the sort of the council's strategy, the city council strategy, and the district strategy? Because how does a board member maybe learn about what workforce investment or workforce development initiatives a council is doing to make sure that kind of both sides of that equation are informed?
So some of our board members reside on some of our committees for the city.
I know that's fabulous.
Yeah, and we, of course, the exchange and conversation happens all the time, and they're able to give the school district's point of view, so the voice is at the table. But the consistent communication happens with the superintendent.
Okay.
The superintendent is the one that we reach out to, and he or she reaches out to us when it comes to helping as a community, helping to wrap our arms around our children and trying to give them the best that we can. We're supporting their initiatives. They support ours. We sit at round tables with them, to help along, and then even bring in. We may even collaborate or be on committees for the school district to go after a grant, and maybe put forth a letters of support. So there are multiple ways. Back to school initiatives in the summer, maybe some camps that are happening with the city, just the collective collaboration, I would say.
I think
I have the summer off because I'm working in the schools. Pretty much I'm a school teacher. 3 times a week I'm in the school that I'm in for the whole school year. So,
Yes. Let's talk about that, the Delaware Youth Leadership Academy. Let's have the audience hasn't had a chance to really hear in detail about your work there, and I'd love for them to share. But I do want to just highlight what you said, because I think it's critically important, that collaboration and creating synergy and just a collective action. It's not something that happens by itself. It is something that leaders need to be intentional about. It's not like, oh
Oh
yeah,
yeah.
I know them, and you got to have the meeting. You have to have the strategy. So I think that
Oh,
my,
absolutely.
kudos to you.
Thank you, and kudos to the
Mm-hmm.
entire council, because we all, in some form or fashion, are participating with the school
Mm-hmm.
districts on multiple levels of
Yeah,
support.
great. Okay, so the leadership academy. Let's help the audience learn a little bit more. Maybe you could share about what the youth leadership academy does.
So the Delaware Youth Leadership Academy, we started that back in 2006, and I wasn't even out of the military yet. I was still in. I
Mm-hmm.
was running the Dover Air Force Base Honor Guard at the time. I was pulled in because I was in the military, because in the curriculum, the other founders that we all came together wanted a military element to go along with the leadership curriculum that we were
Really?
teaching.
Okay. Uh-huh.
And the curriculum is called Rising Stars,
Mm-hmm.
and it's an evidence-based curriculum, and it covers the leadership. It's the same leadership development program that an adult would get at a Fortune 500 company, but it's
Wow.
tailored down for the academic enhancement for students, young
Mm-hmm.
children. So
Mm-hmm.
we would run that from ages, we started out with as young as 10, all the way really to 21, 22-year-olds.
Wow.
And sometimes we get called in to talk to members of the Chamber of Commerce and give a lesson on group
Neat.
dynamics, or whatever it may
Uh-huh.
be, to help adults out too, because it
Yeah.
really, we're putting a tool in the children's toolbox that
Right.
hopefully, as they go to high school and maybe on to college and then maybe on to a corporate setting, or
Mm-hmm.
maybe a master's or whatever, that some of the principles that we're providing them, they will hear again. And a lot of, when you hear about
Sure.
like Maslow's hierarchy of needs, we're already teaching that to them. But then
Mm-hmm.
we're
Mm-hmm.
telling them, oh, you will hear this again. And we
Mm-hmm.
want them to pick up on that when they do, that they got this
Yeah.
first from the Delaware Youth Leadership Academy.
Nice. That's fabulous. And do you think that this learning experience for these young adults leads or translates into more civic engagement, more investment in the community, more willingness to kind of do what's good for society?
So the best way to answer that is from anecdotal interviews of
Mm-hmm.
our past students.
Uh-huh.
Many of them now are college graduates.
Mm-hmm.
Some of them have gotten the experience that I gave them from the military experience, have
Mm-hmm.
joined the service.
Oh wow.
Some have done both. Some have joined the Air Force or military. I'm not gonna say the Air Force.
Mm-hmm.
I'm stop being so biased, right?
Mm-hmm.
But they've joined the military, went to college, and still joined the reserves,
Uh-huh.
and are working. And when I ask them the questions, usually the answers that I get is, it was because of the Youth Leadership Academy
Nice.
that for the first time made me think about joining the military, made me think about putting my plans together and setting goals
Mm-hmm.
and following their dreams. Those things they said were instilled, and they just remembered that was the first time some of them have actually gotten that form of discipline, and
Mm-hmm.
how that discipline drew them to the military, or
Mm-hmm.
at least got them to do what work was needed to get them to where
Sure.
they wanted to go. So
Yeah.
we're very proud of them. And you lose
Mm-hmm.
one or two here or there, whatever, but for the most part, a lot of them have excelled. Some of them are school teachers.
Yeah,
Some of
that's
them are
great.
working on getting their doctorate to become principals. Some
Oh,
of them
wow.
are experts in mathematics, but they were smart prior to a lot. You know what I mean? But
Sure.
the bottom line is, when you go through the Youth Leadership Academy, one of the foundations of it is goal setting.
Mm-hmm.
So we basically broke down. We give them a blank sheet of paper and tell them to write their dreams.
Mm-hmm.
And we tell them, go and dream beyond your expectations. Just write it
Sure.
down, whatever, you know. And then we teach them, of course, how to take that segment of their dreams and break it down to show them a reality of how they can get
Mm-hmm.
there.
Mm-hmm.
And that takes several weeks to try to, you know, of
Mm-hmm.
the curriculum to get them to get a firm understanding of that. And then, of course,
Mm-hmm.
whatever we give them, they can take with them, and that's a tool for
Right.
their toolbox to
Yeah.
get them to strive and
Yep.
understand why it's important to strive, and to value what they're doing now for their
Mm-hmm.
future family.
Right.
That
Right.
for the first time they may not have even thought about themselves as
Sure.
parents. But hey, if the decisions you make right now are the
Mm-hmm.
decisions that's going to affect your family in the future. And
Yep.
if you're in a struggle right now with your family and your parents, and you don't see where the opportunities arise because this
Mm-hmm.
is what you're stuck in right now, it's not the end of the world. This is how you transform yourself,
Mm-hmm.
and this is how your children get to experience a better lifestyle. So
Nice.
we
Right.
we
Yeah.
kind of paint the picture that way, so that we're giving the youth hope, and then
Mm-hmm.
we're also encouraging them to keep working at what they're doing, and why
Yeah.
school and education is important, but
Important.
then also
Uh-huh.
having these life skills to go along with it.
Yeah.
Carry
That's nice.
forward.
Well, congratulations. I think I'm glad that the audience got a chance to hear more about it. I think it's really remarkable to have touched so many lives in such a positive way.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah. So we're nearing the end of the show, and I did want to ask one question just before we wrap up about civic engagement and voting, because both First Aid Educate, we're very focused on increasing the number of people who turn out in votes in elections, and
Right.
you also have the same challenge as an elected official, as a city council
Right.
person. So,
Right.
what could we just to close, like, why do you think it's important that people participate in that process of choosing who represents them?
Yeah, so I think overall too, it's a matter of getting my constituents involved
Mm-hmm.
in learning about city government or local government. That we make some of the most key decisions, and sometimes this not all these decisions are popular, but they're a requirement. We don't have any
Mm-hmm.
choice in the
Mm-hmm.
matter, but
Right.
having the ability to connect with my constituents, and having the constituents
Mm-hmm.
understand, and that way they can weigh what we are doing and understand what
Mm-hmm.
we are doing, so that when they are ready, when it does come time to participate in the election, that they do participate, and that they
Mm-hmm.
are of the understanding of who to vote for, make better choices, and
Mm-hmm.
really, get to know us. You know what I
Yep.
mean?
Yep.
Get to know us. Reach out to your elected officials and
Mm-hmm.
have conversations about different topics that
Mm-hmm.
you feel are close to your heart, and that way we know what's close to people's hearts, and we
Right.
can advocate, right?
Mm-hmm.
Without the bashing and the negativity and all of that, but we're actually trying to uplift and enhance our city, so that we all grow together. And a lot of our decisions, there's a small group who really make sure they come to meetings and make
Sure.
their voices heard. But
Mm-hmm.
on the other hand, if there's sometimes we don't find out about the other groups who were in agreement and versus the disagreement, but we didn't
Sure.
hear them. They didn't come to the meeting and tell us that.
Right.
We
Right.
didn't have
Right.
any way of advocating, because we didn't hear about it
Right.
until after the
Yeah.
fact. Now, in
Yeah.
some cases, we pull it back in and get it back on the agenda and make it right, because the overall people stood
Mm-hmm.
up at some point. But overall, when it comes to voting, I really think that our numbers are at a low point, and I would really like
Yeah.
to see that improve.
Yeah. So do we, and so we're interested in partnering with other elected bodies, with community organizations, with businesses around the state, to be able to just promote awareness, right? I mean, no one's saying vote for this person or vote for that person, but please exercise your right to vote and understand the decisions that these people are making. It has
Sounds
been
like we
my
need to have a public
absolute
meeting to do it. Go ahead. I'm
right,
sorry.
right, exactly. I was just going to say it's been my absolute pleasure to have you on the show today. I learned so much. I always enjoy the time that I spend with you, and I'm just so grateful for your public service and for your sacrifice and putting other really in the front of your life. What you do is really directed around developing opportunities and potential for others. I'm going to take with me the basic training, how important that is, and that
Yes.
you're
Indeed.
representing the organization, how
Yes.
important it is to balance the interests and to point at the process, not the person. But
Right.
really, I think one of the best things that I took away was you said public service is a learning opportunity. And I think I want
Absolutely.
to just thank you for that, because FSE supports people who stood up to be a school board member, and we don't expect them to know everything or to get everything right. Right? They're humans. It's an opportunity to learn, and there are people like us, like you, who are there to support them along the way.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for this opportunity. I had a great time expressing myself, and thank you for giving me the platform.
My pleasure. And to our listeners, thank you for joining us today for another episode of Leading Together podcast. We'll see you next time.
All right. Thank you.